Todd. Commissioner Davidson.
Here.
Commissioner Wilson.
Here.
Commissioner Phillips. Commissioner Irvin.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Chairman McAdoo.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. There's no public comments that I know of. Is that correct? Next on the agenda, T-Mobile and antenna lease, 20 North Public Square. Oh, okay. Let's move back. Didn't have it on the agenda. It's not on the outline, but we're going to correct the outline and we're going to.
Well, no, this number
I got you.
Yeah.
Need a motion to approve the minutes. Vice Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I have read over the minutes and find them all in order, so I've moved to approve. And that's for the September 28th.
Yep. Do I have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Commissioner Dodd, can you hear me? Okay. All right, now we'll ask for T-Mobile.
Chairman, committee, I'm Cody York. I'm the CAIO of Rutherford County. And somehow I ended up being the staff member who was responsible for this. So I'm really just kind of bringing it to the body. I'm kind of trying to facilitate conversation, the appropriate conversation that should be had for it. This is in regards to the request from T-Mobile to put a cell phone tower. Originally was, the original request was for the JC. Because of some security issues with the sheriff's office and also with some maintenance issues with poking holes in a brand new roof, that got tabled. This committee actually recommended that they pursue other buildings, particularly the 20 North, after inspection of 20 North and look at that project. The T-Mobile is making a proposal to put a tower, cell phone tower, on the top of 20 North, the building that my offices are in. There's a lot to kind of go into that. The contract has been reviewed by legal and they've gone back and forth. Actually, T-Mobile has accepted all of the recommended changes that Nick has presented. So that's going forward. There's a couple other finer points that I think would be good to have a conversation about, particularly the length of the contract and some of the finer points, but I would recommend that a motion to suspend the rules to bring up Steve Carr so that he could address the specifics of T-Mobile's contract or their proposal.
Okay,
So moved.
motion to suspend the rule for discussion. Commissioner Johnson, you made the motion or you got a question?
I did.
That second? Second by Commissioner Phillips. All those in favor?
Members of the board, good to see you all again. It's been a while. Once again, my name is Steve Carr. Address is 2894 Aldersgate Drive, Greenwood, Indiana, 46143. And as Cody stated earlier, we have come to terms with the agreement with your legal department. They've reviewed the document, created several red lines. Our legal department approved all the requested red lines. So in our opinion, we have a document that is accepted by your legal department and thus presented back to you all now. In discussions with Cody, one of the things that was kind of brought up as far as the length of the agreement, the current agreement as it stands is a 5-year lease with 9 5-year extensions. Closer? All right, sorry. But yeah, the current agreement is a 5-year lease with 9 5-year extensions, so it's a 50-year lease. This lease is set up as an option and lease agreement. The option period is our due diligence period, which is the time that we do our regulatory assessment. We have several governmental agencies that we have to get approval from, one being the NEPA, National Environmental Protection Agency, the FCC, Federal Communications Commission, SHPO, State Historic Preservation Office, TIPO, tribal offices. We have to get this signed off by at least 35 Indian tribes. Just part of this process you have to go through to get a site deployed because we hold an FCC license. So all those governmental agencies have their opportunity to weigh in. That option period allows us to do all that stuff. In order to do all that stuff, we have to have a final design so that these governmental agencies are reviewing exactly what it's going to look like when it is deployed. Along with all those governmental agencies, you also have a local agency, being the City of Murfreesboro, who will review from an architectural perspective and a zoning perspective. And one of their stipulations is that we have to stealth our antennas, and we have taken steps of doing that in the drawings that you all have seen. And in the reviewing of those drawings, that stealthing structure is 10 feet above the top portion of the parapet wall. So you will see it, but we can make the front of that look like a brick structure or anything, but it hides the antennas, and that is what the City of Murfreesboro wants. And the reason I tell you all these things is because that is our due diligence period. Those are our steps that we take through the process. The agreement and how it is currently laid out is a 1-year option period with 3 additional 1-year option periods to complete those tasks. Cody stated that felt that that was kind of a long period of time. We have done a situation where we do 1 year with 1 additional year after that. And if we don't solve all those things within that 2-year period, we would then come back to you guys and say, can we get another amount of time? And this is why the delays exist. So we are open to reducing that to 2 years rather than the 4 that is currently laid out in the contract. So that's things that we can do after speaking with Cody and understanding some of the concerns. The other one was the length of the agreement. We don't like to do much less than 30 years. It's currently laid out as a 50-year agreement. A lot of people like it to be longer because it ensures the length of the agreement. But Cody stated that there might be some concern about the length of the 50 years, and we would be open, if it is so chosen by you all, to reduce that to a 30-year period. So you have a 5-year initial term with 5 5-year extensions. And those extensions are automatic extensions. But those were kind of some of the things that Cody, from the business perspective, brought back to me, which I in turn spoke to my leadership team prior to this meeting.
One other, excuse me. I think one other thing that would be good to know is that you guys met with Adam Dodd and other property management staff and walked through all the explanation about what was going to be done and how it was going to be done, and all of their requests for, like the structural reinforcement and all that are existing in this agreement. Is that correct?
That is correct. The answer to that question is correct. We have got a design where we know the steel structure and everything. We just haven't pushed the button on the calculations because we want to make sure everybody's good with our design, so that when we push the buttons on those calculations, those engineers are in fact reviewing what we're going to do, so we're not redoing things over again. But from a design perspective, we've gotten building drawings of the building, understand the steel structure that is in place, and pretty much know what our design is now could be held by the steel structure that is in place, but they ultimately will have somebody go through it and put the official stamp on it. Because there might be a situation where the City of Murfreesboro will say, hey, we want you to do something different here. I, in turn, would have to come back to you all and say, hey, this is what they're looking for. What are your thoughts? So it'll be a process like that where the city will be greatly involved in the final appearance of the structure. And I feel that based on what I've seen in this downtown area, they're going to do everything to make it look good. So, and we're open to doing that because we understand the importance of that as well.
Okay, is there any questions from the new commissioners from the last election? Because we discussed this prior to the last election. And this was brought forward to this committee under Mayor Ketron and Adam Dodd, and we all went through it and approved the concept. So it's coming back to us now. So if any of the new commissioners got any questions, Commissioner Irvin?
Yes, I have a few questions. And I recall it coming through this committee some time ago. And one of the questions we had at that point was whether we had comparables for the rent and the terms and conditions. Because as I just look at this, and candidly, I haven't had time to study it. I apologize for not being able to get to it till this afternoon. But, in fact, just before the meeting. But it appears the option period for 4 years, that's $500 a year? Okay.
Yes, it is.
Okay. And then the initial term is 5 years, couple grand a month.
That's correct.
Okay. And then at the beginning of each 5-year period after that, for 45 years, there's a 10% escalator at the beginning of each 5-year period.
That is correct. So year 6, rent goes up 10%.
Yes. And okay, that's correct. And so one of the questions I had was, in just looking at it briefly, is that comparable to what other situations, other contracts like this in other cities, downtown, in similar, markets, comparable price points, fees, et cetera? And I know that that question was asked a while back. I was curious if it was ever addressed.
I was unaware of that question being asked about this project, so maybe I missed something, but no, I would have to, I've not done any research trying to figure out the comparables and what the nature is. Steve can probably speak to some of that. I would assume that this is incredibly variable, and it really just depends on the deal that each community or each government body strikes with, or private company. There are private companies that hold them too. So I think it really just ends up coming down to, how much they think it's worth to have this location, because there are other locations. My understanding is they are required by law to try to seek out government buildings first. And then if there are no amenable deals with government entities, they then are free to go look for other places. And I may be misstating that, but that's my understanding of the process. So I'm sure they want to strike a deal and get a tower up, because that's what they do, right? They help people make their phone calls, so that's what they're trying to do. But if this deal isn't amenable, then they can check that box. Okay, we tried to do it on a government building and that failed, so we're going to move on to private companies. But I'll let Steve speak to that.
Yes, so as far as going to governmental entities, it's not mandated by any law, so to speak. It is something that we do because it makes it a better thing going to a public entity rather than a private source. And if we presented a fair number that we feel is a fair number for the amount of space that we're utilizing in the area that we're covering, and that's kind of how we do that. Now, if you were to say, hey, we don't want to do this unless we get $6,000 a month, he's right. We will go elsewhere and look for other things. I mean, that's part of the process and what we do. But we feel that the rental rate that we presented to you all is fair, and I'm just stating that by doing other deals around the area. When we build a tower and have to pay for the steel structure, our lease rates for leasing that ground are anywhere from $500 to $800 a month as an average. Now, if you're in downtown New York City, and you want to build a tower, you're going to pay a little more than the $500 to $800 a month. So, but that's kind of just giving you kind of a perspective of we're taking out of the equation for us the steel that is required to get the elevation we need. Thus, we offer the more rental rate on existing structures of height. And we have national agreements with companies like Crown Castle, American Tower, SBA Communications. We recently just renegotiated all those master lease agreements with those companies that own towers all across the United States, anywhere from 40 to 60,000 towers, and kept that rental rate below a $2,000 a month mark, because that's another situation that's comparable. It's an existing tower of height. We're adding our antennas to that. We're not having to build that steel structure just like you're building, that we are just attaching to the top of it with our antennas, and then also have to do the stealthing material around it. So of our opinion, based on market standards, we feel it's a fair rate that we are offering you.
And I can appreciate that. I was just trying to see what due diligence we've done to confirm what you're telling us. And I'm hearing not much.
I've not done anything, so a little bit, and this is maybe a little bit of history that was brought up the first time that I presented this, or that we present this, is I'm not advocating for or against this. I was simply the nearest guy when this proposal was made, and they said, we need somebody to, somebody's got to, Cody, why don't you, coordinate with him and make sure that he has access to the building when he needs it and all that stuff. So I've really just been facilitating this. I'll be happy to, if that's what you guys need done, I'll be happy to take that. So please don't hear me say I'm not going to do that, but I was unaware that that was something that I needed to do. If that's something I need to do, I'll be happy to explore that.
And I don't think it's a huge study. I think it's more just trying to get a sense, are we in the ballpark? Is what I would like, just some confirmation so we know this is a reasonable amount. And I have no reason to doubt what the gentleman's saying. I forgot your name, I'm sorry. But I think we ought to do our own due diligence on that. That's my view. And then on some of the other terms and conditions, like in section 4, the thing I would want to know there in section 4 is whether the antennas, whether this conflicts with anything else we might want to do. I know we don't have probably a long-term plan for this, for cell towers, okay? But I'm just trying to think through, is there anything in that antenna facilities and permitted uses that would conflict either with something we might want to do in the future, like I was just alluding to? And again, I haven't had a chance to study the agreement, but there appear to be some other provisions that are really quite one-sided in the tenant's favor. And you're nodding your head, and I concur. Just again, on glancing at it. But there are some that are really on your favor, and I'd want to make sure there's no conflicts with what we want to do and internally within the agreement. And I'll kind of go through some of this. For example, if you go over to section 7, it talks about interference, and I know that's a big deal for us, because we obviously can't create in a small area a lot of interference. And so I would just, 4 seems to go pretty far in terms of what you guys can do. And then I'd want to make sure there's not anything that we might be thinking about that could create interference. You see where I'm headed with that?
Yeah, I welcome Steve's input on this, but I can't think of anything that we would do that would be on the electromagnetic spectrum that they are using. We're not talking Wi-Fi or anything like that. Like we could put a Wi-Fi antenna up and all this other. That's not going to affect anything they're doing. They're on a different electromagnetic wavelength than we are, a completely different scale, actually.
And I'm just thinking in terms of the 50 years. In other words, this thing is it's 54, 53, 54. It could go another couple years even.
50.
Well, it's 50-year term plus some options, plus a couple at the end.
Yeah.
And so it could conceivably go, that's my reading, you correct me if I'm wrong, but if it seemed to be about like a 55, 56, 57-year, 50-year contract. So if we're looking, and I know we don't have a crystal ball either, but if we start thinking down the road, what's it going to look like? Okay, I just would want to be sure that these, the potential conflicts with Section 4, with Section 7, and I had highlighted Section 9 also, but I'm not sure. I don't have an example for that one. Okay. The couple other terms and conditions. This thing, like we talked about, it's a 50-year lease. It appears that the tenant can terminate for any number of reasons, whereas we don't basically seem to have a termination right. I mean, there may be. Okay, go ahead, please. Correct me.
There's a reason for that. Because
for 50 years.
Once we flip that switch, and the consumers of our technology rely on that for safety, connectivity, and everything else. And the FCC says once you flip the switch on, you got to do that until eternity, or until the federal laws change, or new technologies exist. So that's why the termination clause within the agreement is so one-sided, because once we turn it on, you as consumers will become relying on that form of communications as a life safety. That is the way I get a hold of anybody I need to in any situation. So that's why it is very one-sided. And if everybody that I deployed an antenna site all across the United States had a termination clause every 5 years, I would have a heck of a lot of job security for sure, but that's not what we're intended to do. It's you got to establish the network and maintain that network. And if you have terminating leases all over, you will not have an adequate and reliable network, which is what we're required to provide per the Telecom Act of 1996.
More question, Commissioner?
Oh, yeah. Is there more questions? Yes.
Let me interrupt here for just a few minutes. Steve, how long have we been looking at this?
I think it's, I hate to say this, but it's almost been probably a year since I've been here last. So,
Yes, since you've been.
yes, there was time before that because we were looking at the JC building.
I don't mind all the questions, but if you hadn't had a chance to read it, would you like to defer it until we go over it and bring it back at the next meeting? You want to continue to go through it tonight?
I'm perfectly fine with deferring it to the next meeting. It may require that level of thought. But I'll highlight a couple other things that are concerns in looking at it. The termination right is one. The assignment provision, I mean, basically you guys can assign, except for a very low threshold of reasonableness, I mean, you guys can assign to anybody for anything, basically, and we can't, basically, except to another owner. Is that correct?
Yeah, and the other flip side to that is there's been a lot of mergers and acquisitions in my business. You had Sprint go away, you had Nextel go away, so that is kind of the realm of all that, so that if somebody comes in there and merges, that agreement gets assigned to that new entity that exists. So that's one of the reasons why that provision's there.
And I understand that. I've actually participated in some of those transactions involving cell towers and things like that.
Okay.
And so the assignment provision under 19, I would just like to have an opportunity to take a closer look at that. Also, there's a note in here in the assignment provision dealing with co-location payments. And it seems to be a bit of an open question. I was curious if there had been an update since this was drafted.
Yeah, I think that, and that's one of those, after talking with Nick, he recommended that if this body felt comfortable moving forward, that the motion be to approve pending legal counsel final approval of the document, because there are a few of those little things that need to be worked out, and that's one of those. I think that the blank there, do you know what we're referring to? It was the co-share of the revenue that was added. They added the language, but they left it blank, what percentage would go to the county. Okay. So, I think that might be something, I mean, for all I know, that's something that y'all could resolve tonight with a conversation. But yeah, my interpretation of that and Nick's interpretation of that was them saying, yes, we're open to this, but we can figure out what percentage we need to get there with.
Okay. Yeah, and I'd be interested to know what the market is, if there is one, or is it just something we need to come up with? I mean, at this point, I'm not sure why we would I'm not sure why we'd share any of it, but.
There normally isn't a co-location stream of revenue on a rooftop site. If you want to put another carrier on top of your rooftop, you can do that all day long you want, as long as it doesn't interfere with where our antennas are. It's first in time, next man in line, make sure he locates his structure so that it does not interfere with us.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes, I think that's the last thing that kind of jumped out at me. Some of the liability issues with the assignment, also, I'd like to be able to think through those briefly, and make sure that, our council has adequately, I mean, I think you said he signed off on it, but, those, it seems a bit onerous in terms of what y'all are able to do and we're not, and we're giving up liability protection essentially if you were to assign it against the people made the original deal with. Now, that may not be that unusual, but it's still something I think we need to make sure it all fits together well, and everybody has a chance to really kind of think it through, including me.
Yeah, the comment in regards to the assignment is whoever the assigning party, they encumber and must abide by the standards of the lease that they were assigned to. So that's how that would.
Yeah, but it's a reasonableness standard, and you guys can assign for reason, as long as it's reasonable, quote unquote. Whereas if there's some other actor that's less financially secure, in our view, that could create an issue. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I don't know if this is appropriate, but I believe it probably would be. I'd like to make a motion that we give tentative approval with final approval coming back next month through with our attorney's input. And I'd like to see these changes made under Section 2 option, eliminate the 3 successive years in that option and just make it 1 successive years. And under the renewal term, take it from 9 down to 4, which would make it 25. Also with that process coming back to every 5 years, just to acknowledge that, to make sure that it came back to the county every 5 years to make sure that we knew that contract was up for renewal. I'm okay with the automatic thing, but I just want to make sure that the county knows that once again. So those 2 changes would be what I'd like to see, and my motion would be tentative approval subject to changes made by our county attorney's office, brought back to this committee next month if possible for final approval. Number 1, that option 2, remove the 3 years. and under the lease term, take it from 9 to, would that be 4?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Johnson. Any other discussion? Commissioner Johnson?
Years ago, we put an antenna on top of, I think it was the Goldstein building, and I brought up the fact that we're self-insured, and I had a concern over possibly lightning strikes because it will be elevated above the building, and I'm pretty sure we had it put in the contract that if that was to happen, if it was proven that the antenna was struck and it knocked out anything of ours, that it was covered by by the company that owned the antenna. Yes, sir.
We take extreme measures to ground everything that's up there. So because we don't want it getting to our radios either, so.
Okay, any other discussion, any other questions for Steve and?
A couple of things to clarify.
Wait just a minute. Commissioner Phillips, you made the motion, but we were out of session, so when we come back in session, you'll have to make that motion again.
That's right. It's
Okay.
almost like having to vote yes 2 consecutive meetings.
Right, right.
But the indication is that we want to approve this with these changes and with input from our county attorney's office, and then come back next month for final approval.
Yeah, when we go back in session, I'll take that motion in your second. Any more questions for Steve?
Quick question for the
Commissioner
gentleman.
Irvin?
Yeah, the co-location under 19, that contemplates a sublease by you. So are you saying you're never going to sublease in colo?
In these situations, we would not on a rooftop, because if it's a tower, and I own the tower, and I put T-Mobile on there first, and then later AT&T comes in and goes on that tower, well, AT&T has to pay additional money. Sometimes landowners say, if you put the tower on my property, I'm gonna want 10%, or I want $100 for every tenant you add. A lot of those situations will go to another property owner. So it's just taken away another form of our business, and that would be the vertical real estate business.
So you're saying you wouldn't do it, so it'd be okay just to remove, say y'all cannot sublease.
As long as that section is stating, I'd have to read all that and get it back with our legal department, because I'm the real estate guy, not the attorney.
Understood. I'm just trying to,
Yeah.
I'm trying to nail down the one open
Yeah.
piece here.
And I'll address that with him and get back with Cody on that.
Any other questions for Steve? Commissioner Johnson?
Move to resume the session.
Motion to resume session. Do I have a second?
Chairman, thank you all.
Do I have a second on resuming session? Yeah, okay, we're back in session.
I'm not 100% sure that motion was appropriate under the suspension
wasn't.
of rules.
Yeah.
So now that we're back in session,
Right.
I'll make the same motion.
Entertain a second on it?
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Commissioner Dodd, are you able to hear us? Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? Dodd, roll call.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Davidson,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips, Commissioner Irvin,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Chairman McAdoo.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, committee.
Next on the agenda, facility maintenance report, and Adam is in class this week, so we are going to hear his report from our chief executive officer.
I unfortunately do not have photos and things to show you, but I do have a report.
Before we get started into that, I wanted to bring to your attention, the mayor's office is always looking for other ways to pay for things without the county having to pay for them. Essentially, we're looking for grants. As everybody knows, the county has Reba Carlton, who does a great job of trying to always find grants. And there is a grant opportunity that has come available. It's the Connected Communities Facilities Grant. If any of you know, finding grants for buildings and facilities is very hard to do. They don't come around very often. This grant would provide up to $2 million for rehabilitation of a building, specifically for the purpose of enhancing workforce development for public access. So the idea here is that we would use the $2 million. There is a match on this, be a 20% match, but we would use the $2 million if we were so awarded to renovate the second floor of the Goldstein building after the individuals who are in the Goldstein building have been moved to the Linebaugh Library. I asked Chairman McAdoo if I could go ahead and bring this to your attention tonight, because another thing with grants is I don't think they quite give us enough time to run these through properly. We found out about this grant, I believe it was the end of last week, and we've got to get everything wrapped up by November to present to this. So what I'm asking is that we would be given permission to just apply for this grant. Obviously, if we were awarded the grant, this is a competitive grant. If we were awarded, then that would come back to this body and go through for approval.
No means would commit us to approving the grant.
Absolutely.
Any questions on the grant? Commissioner Irvin?
Is this going to have time to go through budget?
There's no funding here. This is just permission to apply. So I would be asking that this goes straight to the full commission. If we are awarded the grant, then it would come back through here, through budget, and then through the full commission.
So the match does not, in other words, there's no liability for applying,
None.
only the cost of your time and other folks' time to apply.
Commissioner Phillips? Commissioner Johnson?
I'd like to make a motion to approve applying for the grant.
Motion to approve. We have second? Second by Commissioner Wilson. Any discussion?
And just to clarify,
Commissioner Johnson?
that's not committing us to anything. That's just applying for the grant.
Apply only.
If it's approved, it will come back through the process.
Right.
And which will
Right.
include budget.
Right.
Has legal signed off on jumping past budget committee in the,
We're not jumping past the budget committee. This is the process that we do on every time that we apply for a grant, is my understanding.
This is a process that we have followed in the past, applying, and if we approve, then we bring it back and go through the proper procedure of the funding, of the 20% match. And Commissioner Johnson?
Yeah, this is not approving any
No.
money
No.
in any way, so it's not
Not approving
budgetary.
any money.
And when or if it's approved, it will go back through this committee on the budget. That's
Right.
when it's budgetary. It's not budgetary at this time.
Correct.
There's no money.
Correct.
Excuse me.
Go ahead, Commissioner Irvin.
my concern is this, if there's any strings to the application when we sign it or anything along those lines. I just haven't seen it. So, I mean, I'll be a no vote because I haven't seen it. And I'm a bit concerned without having seen any of the applications, seeing any of the documentation, et cetera.
Any other questions? Any other Commissioner got any questions? If not, call the roll.
Commissioner Phillips? Yes. Commissioner Wilson?
Yes.
Commissioner Davidson?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
No.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Chairman McAdoo?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. All right, as I said, I don't have any photographs that I was provided, but in regards to the Las Casas Public Health and Safety Building, site work is ongoing. It's about 70% complete. The steel trusses are 100% complete. Light gauge steel has been delivered and installation is now complete. Zip board and installation ongoing is roughly 50% complete. Stone veneer siding is 100% complete, and I'm trying not to read too fast. If I am, please just let me know. Site fire line and vault installation complete, awaiting inspection. Roof deck is ongoing. Interior stud walls and framing are at 100% complete. The next 4-week look ahead would be plywood, decking, and shingles within the next 2 to 4 weeks. Contractor anticipates the building dry-in by early November. Exterior glass measured and delivered to site. Plank siding and trim materials delivered to site. Transformer and generator pads formed and poured. MTE to set new pole for primary power. And that's the end of the report for the Las Casas Public Health and Safety Building. The Walter Hill Public Health and Safety Building site work is ongoing. It's 40 to 50% complete. Electrical, plumbing, and mechanical rough-in is complete and passed inspection. All concrete slabs are now complete. CMU walls ongoing at roughly 50% complete. Metal door framing and core fill-in at roughly 50% complete. Mezzanine slab over the shelter at 80%. Contractor anticipates completion by the end of the week. Site, and I don't know if that was last week or this week, but that's what it says. Site fire line and vault insulation at 90%, awaiting inspection. Primary and secondary electrical lines are complete. The 4-week look ahead is steel trusses, estimated delivery to site within the next 2 weeks. Light gauge steel, estimated delivery to site within the next 4 weeks. Completion of CMU walls and application of moisture barrier within the next 4 weeks. Interior wall stud framing within the next 4 weeks. And that is all that I have on the Walter Hill Public Health and Safety Building. This committee also asked about, I think it was Commissioner Johnson, about some fencing at the site in Smyrna. Adam has looked into that. It's going to be $14,300 for the fencing, which does not include gating. And it's the mayor's recommendation that we do not pursue this because that particular parcel is the site of the expected forensic center location. So this would be a temporary solution at quite an expense. And that is all that I have for the facilities maintenance report from Director Dodd.
Mr. Johnson, you got a question on the fencing?
Not a question. Excuse me. Last month, I brought up that property because some heavy equipment had been parked there because of utilities that were being run. Whoever the company was tore up the asphalt. And I know in the future we're looking at expanding our parking lot over there for the county court clerk building. And that's a possibility is coming out in that section. That area, well, it's a long area, but the front section of that is what we're thinking about using for extended parking for county court clerk. My thought was, and what I suggested, but it turned out to be fencing and all, what I wanted to do is try to find out who tore up the pavement and let them reimburse us for what they did.
Adam did not put that in my notes that he gave me here, but I did have a conversation with him about that, and he said there was absolutely no way for him to determine who it was. There was nothing that he could find to say which trucking company it was or anything of that nature. So I think he looked into it, but that was what he came to find out, that there was no way of knowing.
He did what I asked. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on chain link fence? I did have a conversation with Adam, and it may be possible, Commissioner Johnson, to put up some signs saying no heavy trucks or no heavy equipment, and ask Smyrna Police to patrol it. And we are looking into that for that area.
Could that possibly, those signs may solve the problem, but could it possibly say no trespassing?
Right.
Maybe that would release us of some liability if someone was trespassing there and got hurt.
Yeah.
Maybe not. You can sue over anything.
And we will ask Smyrna Police to patrol it. Okay, it's Chief Executive Officer. Not finished with you yet. It was another question last month about the buildings on Florence Road being torn down, and it was sent to the mayor's office that we get those buildings tore down. Can you give us an update?
Buildings on Singer Road?
Right.
Yes, we're still looking into that. We haven't got a buyer yet, but we're still looking and trying to get the highest price that we possibly can for that. I think it's a barn and a couple of outbuildings over there on Singer Road.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you. Next on the agenda.
Move to approve the report.
Yeah. Motion. Do I hear a motion?
Yes, I move to
Okay. You making the motion to approve it?
motion to approve the report.
Second. Any discussion on report? All those in favor? Next on the agenda, tour announcement.
I reached out to Sheriff Fitzhugh and Chief Lowry about a tour of the jail property for all of you, and they have agreed that November the 30th at 3:30, right before our next property management meeting, would be a good time for them, and they'll be ready for you.
Okay, did each committee member get that time? November the 30th?
November the 30th at 3:30. It'll be before the regular November property management meeting.
And we will meet at the jail.
Yes.
Other business, Commissioner Phillips.
When I was a lot younger, I had an uncle. His first name was Irwin. And I've been embarrassingly pronouncing Commissioner Irvin's name as Irwin for probably quite some time. And it's an embarrassment to me, and I apologize to him and to this commission for that. And I'll do a much better job, Commissioner Irvin. My apology.
No worries on my end. Thank you.
Commissioner Dodd?
The plaque out at Rockville High School has me as Commissioner Dogg, D-O-G-G. Can you do something about that, Jeff?
So I got several things to bring up under other business. And first, I would like to bring up about our parking situation for the judicial building. As you know, we bought the Daily News Journal building. We tore it down. We built a parking garage, and that parking garage was specifically for the judicial building at the time, because the judicial building where it's located did not have any parking. All the other buildings in that area do have the private parking, and what we're running into now is that the court we have approximately 19,000 that come through there each month. But the main concern that we have is that we have jurors that come up to serve as jury duty and not have any parking spaces. We have a total of anywhere from 100 to 150 jurors that come up at one time. Now that parking garage will only it's only got 360 spots. That's it. And a main concern, if you send out and want somebody to come up there to serve jury duty, it's an obligation, they gotta come. So if they come, we got to have a parking space for them. Now, age is a factor in this. Some of those jurors can be 80 years old, 90 years old, or whatever. And if we don't have a parking space, we gotta do something. We gotta do something. So we really need to do a quick study, in which we did start a study in the past about that. But we're going to have to do something quick on this parking situation, especially for the jurors. And the only thing I can see is that parking garage was built for the judicial building. And it should, if I have to go back and have the minutes pulled on when Mayor Burgess, when we approved that project, I'm pretty sure it's going to show that we bought the Daily News Journal building, which Commissioner Phillips know about, and we had to build a parking garage to accommodate the judicial building because it don't have any parking. So therefore, they got first priority on that parking garage. So therefore, we're going to have to do something. So I'm just suggesting that we do a study or get together with our clerk over there, Melissa, she's here. Yeah, she's here, and see what we can come up with, because it's definitely an issue. When we have 150 jurors come up here and nowhere to park. They can't park on the street because it's 2-hour parking. So therefore, we're gonna have to come up with something. And I think we need to go back to our original plan on that judicial building and look at maybe reserving spots or doing something with that judicial parking garage. So we will be doing some study and bringing back maybe hopefully some recommendations or something by next month, because this is an issue that we can't just put on the back burner, because they get fined and everything else. They get picked up or whatever if a jury show up or come up here to serve on jury duty and nowhere to park. They either jump in his vehicle and go home and just say, hey, I didn't have nowhere to park. And it is a serious issue, and we need to address it. So if any of you committee members got any input or whatever that you would like to see, I'm pretty sure we'll be discussing this. We'll be doing a study. I will be discussing with her, and probably we'll be discussing with the mayor's office and different ones to see if we can come up with a plan so we can accommodate individuals that's using that judicial building. Any discussion? Commissioner Davison?
I'm going to agree with you wholeheartedly. My neighbor was called for jury duty, and she's had a stroke. And that was her biggest concern, was I don't know if I'll be able to find somewhere to park. I don't know if I'll be able to get over there. So I kind of already knew it was an issue. I didn't realize that, I guess, other people are parking in there.
Oh,
I really had to be there.
Unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Well, I don't really know how to police that, but I absolutely believe there should be reserved spots for those jurors that are coming, whether you have to send something in the mail with a special, something they put in their window to get those spots. But we definitely need a plan.
We definitely need to do something, and we will be looking at it, and I will ask the mayor, and we'll be discussing it. And if you got any input, anything you can think of on this situation, please let us know, because it's something we're gonna have to address quickly. At one time, when we built that, we knew we were going to have an issue. That's the reason we bought the Daily News Journal building, to build that parking garage. And then we looked at the other parking garage. We said, hey, if we build this, they're not going to park at the other one. And that's true. They're not parking at the other one. So then we came up with the idea of maybe running a shuttle service from the other parking garage to the judicial building. And we've looked at everything, but as you know, everything is growing in Rutherford County. It's growing. So therefore, you know, her judicial building and the judicial system is growing by leaps and bounds. And it's not like it been in the last couple of years where you can go up there and park anywhere in the parking garage, because it's full. It is full, and I mean it is full. And I don't think it's right for us to have jurors that's got to come up here and not have a place to park. So if you got any input or any ideas, please get it to us before the next meeting, because we got to address it. Commissioner Phillips, you got that?
I know that in the past, and it's been a long time ago, there was all of these issues that came up about employee parking in and around the square, and merchants, in essence, parking all day, and merchants not having parking spots for customers. We went through a trying period years and years ago about that. When it came right down to it, we had a difficult time enforcing anything. And that's what kind of led to some of the time restrictions around the square. But there was a company, and I can't remember whether it came through our planning department or the Murfreesboro's planning department or Murfreesboro's council, but there was a company that did some type of a study and made some recommendations. That's in all probability, I think, what you've got in mind, but someone that could give us some idea of a way to manage that. So I think you're on target, but through the mayor's office or through the planning commission, we could probably get someone to do some type of a study and come up with some recommendation. And to get that ball rolling now, I think is an appropriate.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think we need to include the plan, definitely include the planning commission, the mayor's office, and everyone that you can think of, because it is a serious issue. Commissioner Johnson?
As you already stated, there's limited parking in that garage anyway. You could possibly reach out to the city of Murfreesboro too, in case a juror, they've got to get in there. They've got to park, they've got to get in there on time. If they have to park outside in a 2-hour parking, if they do get a ticket, maybe Murfreesboro could work out something with us where, like doctor's offices in Nashville, they'll stamp it off, you're good. So as long as you have like a placard to hang in your window when you get jury duty or whatever.
Commissioner Johnson, we tried that in the past to discuss with Murfreesboro City about the parking, about the 2-hour parking. We even called flack on the commissioners having a place to park for 2 hours if they come up here for county business. And they didn't even want to do that, but I can discuss it with them again. But when we built that parking garage, we asked Murfreesboro City, would they go in with us to build that? Their answer was no, flat out no. And so we did what we could at the time to build that parking garage. So I will go to them and discuss it and bring it back to the next meeting, what Murfreesboro answer is.
I agree, because if you don't ask, you don't get.
Right.
And I feel we have a better working relationship, I feel, with the county commission and the city of Murfreesboro now than we did way back too. So please just ask.
Well, I thought that until they turned down my Tiffle project, but but anyway, we will discuss it. Commissioner Phillips being on planning commission, that may be you can coordinate, ask Murfreesboro Planning.
Done.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any other discussion on the parking?
How many jurors are there every day?
Every day, I got, Melissa, would you like to come up and answer that question? And she's an elected official. I don't think I have to suspend the rule for her.
Average, we have, for the month of September, we had 18,281. Our highest month this year, we've had 22,000 individuals in our building in 1 month. This Monday, we had 1,200. Today and yesterday, we had 150 jurors come in per day. At 1 o'clock, we do, every month, we do what we call a jury orientation, which we have to swear all our jurors in for that month. And that is one of the things that touched my heart, because I had one of my seasoned citizens, I guess I'll call it, came there. He had COPD, and he told me that he wasn't able to make it hardly to the parking lot because he'd had to park his car in 3 different areas before he could find an actual parking place that someone didn't ask him to move. So jurors, not only is it just our jurors that are having an issue, you know, at court, you are court ordered to come to court. Not only are you summoned, you're also subpoenaed. So if those individuals don't show up, then there's a consequence. So it's just, I've been hearing it for a while. I just did nothing about it because I thought, oh, it'll work itself out. But now it's getting worse.
So it's 150 jurors plus an additional how many people per day that would be required? Because we've got 360 spots. Are we over that number? I'm just trying to get a sense. Okay, so we're over
60.
Okay, so significantly over that number. Okay.
At 10:32 this morning, I decided to take a drive through the Judicial Center parking garage. There were 20 spots available. The majority of them were on the tip-top floor. Well, I guess not the majority. There were 7 up there. Everybody wants their car covered. I get it. I would too.
So, like I stated, we will be discussing that, and hopefully we get something back here at the next meeting. And I would like for you to be included in the discussion, and everything we come up with, we'll run it by you, and hopefully you'll be here at the next meeting also. This is something we can't put off, really. I'm being serious about it. Legally, we can't put it off. You know, if I send out 150 jurors, I want you to come up here, and they come up here and they ain't got nowhere to park, that's an issue. That is an issue. So hopefully we'll come up with a good solution to it, and we will bring something back by next month.
I have great faith in you guys. So, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Lisa Crowell, our county clerk, has a similar issue in her parking lot. She mentioned that, if you guys remember, a couple of months ago about her parking lot being full and overcrowded with people parking there that had business at the judicial building. So it's a growing issue, and that's part of what the security officer does at her facility right now is to kind of regulate what goes in and out of that piece of property there. So it's an issue.
Yeah.
Come and don't have room in the parking garage, so they go wherever they can. So they're going to the clerk's office, and it's something that needs to be studied and taken a look at, and hopefully we can resolve that issue. It could be something as simple as putting a gate up where people get a ticket to go into that thing, and have it punched while they're inside, and get out free, that type of thing. So it could be something as simple as that, but who knows?
True. Okay, anything else on the other business that we need to discuss? Commissioner Irvin, you got anything on the other business? Commissioner Davidson, got anything on the other business? Commissioner Phillips, got anything on the other business? Commissioner Johnson, you got anything on the other business? Commissioner Dodd, can you hear me? And Commissioner Wilson, do you have anything on the other business? All right, motion to adjourn. So moved.